Okay, did everybody get a handout? Did everybody get one of these handouts? Okay. Okay, we're going to go over the handout first. These are the labs for the entire semester, starting with next week. Tonight, we're just going to finish up week 1 discussion on Chapter 1, Introduction to Network Security. And then what's due by Sunday is just your About Me and Topic 1 review quiz. And I believe I went over both of those on Tuesday, so I won't rehash that again. Any question on what's due coming up? Okay, so before class next session, just make sure you've went through Chapter 2 of the text prior to coming to class on Tuesday. On Tuesday, we'll devote the entire time to discussion. Thursday, we'll begin our very first lab. And tonight, I want to kind of go over the labs and then whether or not you're going to get a CD, whether it's a downloadable software, if there's any type of requirements that you need to bring in before class or with you to class. So the first is NT Reset. That's next week. You will be getting a CD for that. That's the lab that allows you to, if a computer in your place of work, somebody changed the administrator password, instead of trying to re-image it or trying to hack it or trying to crack it to figure it out, this piece of software actually loads up an entire operating system in Linux. And once you know how to use it, you can literally be up and going into the system with under a minute, regardless what the password is that's been set on that machine. You can also, with this software, reset passwords of any user on a machine, on a local machine. So it's a pretty powerful software. And anything that we do this semester, and I didn't mention this Tuesday, I thought I'd mention it today when we start talking about labs, there are disclaimers on all of these. All of these tools that you'll be given could be used for evil, and they could also be used for good. And so I'm just asking you to use it for good, because some of the knowledge you'll get this semester, you could do some damage, definitely, to a network, whether it be your own or at work. And so I would say keep the labs that we do. You can definitely do them again at home if you want to, but I would definitely not try these at work, and I don't want to get anybody fired, okay? And so basically this is to help you. Now if you're an IT manager or you're a network administrator, some of these labs you like, when we get into penetration testing and stuff or hacking web, it might be kind of cool to do that in your environment to see how fast it takes to do stuff like that, just to see if it can be done. And so that's fine, you know, as long as you're the boss in charge or you've gotten permission to do that. So NT resets next week. Week 3, we'll be beginning, we'll do what's called a Snort Lab. This one actually allows you to go in and snort packets on a network to determine what type of activities on a network. And we'll do that on week 3. And hackers use that to determine the traffic, but also as a network admin, you can use Snort to determine any peaks in traffic in certain computers or servers that you have in your domain. IP spoofing in week 4. It's a downloadable that we'll do on that one. That one will show you in that lab how easy it is to spoof an IP address on a network. So you could have a hacker could come in, spoof an IP address on your network, and be able to get in to access things maybe they normally wouldn't be able to access because of the rules on a network. And so the software we'll be using that week will show how hackers do that, and then also ways you can thwart that from not happening from a network perspective. Week 5, man-in-the-middle attack. It's a downloadable software as well. And we'll be using a software called Kane-Enable. And it's basically a toolkit as well. It's kind of customized a little bit to our lab. And basically in that week, you guys will come in. I will have one machine in here set up as a man-in-the-middle, and then everybody else is going to basically log into Facebook. When you log in, when you go to Facebook.com, it'll actually direct to the man-in-the-middle computer somewhere in the room, and I'll have you attempt to log in with a bogus username and password. I don't want you to put a real one in, because you'll see at the end of the lab, the machine that I point out where it's at will actually go look at it and show you the database that it saved all of the tries and attempts that users had on that Facebook.com account. And then as soon as the hacker collects the data, they turn off this software, and then everybody attempts to go back into Facebook.com in that environment and just thinks, well, they forgot their password or something or typed it in wrong like we've all done before. In that lab, I'll actually show you some red flags to look at for man-in-the-middle if you're a victim of man-in-the-middle, or to train your employees some ways that they can tell if they're a victim of that. And there's little tips and tricks I'll show you. But it's a pretty powerful lab as well. I actually finalized this one a couple semesters ago. I was in St. Louis. My wife had a conference there, and it was about a week or two prior to this lab, and I thought, you know, I'm going to try this here in the hotel. So I was in the room, and you know, most hotels now have Wi-Fi, and you know, anyway, I set this up quickly, went to another computer to log into Facebook on the network, and sure enough, went right to the man-in-the-middle computer I had set up in that Wi-Fi network in the hotel. Now, granted, I didn't let it sit there long enough to gather any more data but mine, but it was up and going once I got the steps in about 10 minutes. And anyone that would have hopped on that network and went to Facebook actually would have been redirected to the machine I had set up. And so this is done a lot of times in cafes and a lot of times in hotspots all over. Chicago's real prone for stuff like this happening. But even in Rockford, there's a lot of places, business that offer free Wi-Fi. So people are used to seeing free Wi-Fi hotspots a lot of times. And so hackers will just be creative in the naming of their IP address or their SSID of that account that they create, and users connect to it, like call it ATT or free Wi-Fi. And that's another big red flag we'll talk about that week, how you never connect to anything that says free in the name. It's usually not up on the up and up, especially in metropolitan areas. And you'll see a lot of free Wi-Fi as you pop into Chicago or you go into any populated city, you know, Milwaukee, and you can generally attempt to connect to those, and you sit there and just spin and spin and spin. And while you're trying to connect, what's happening is on the other end, the rogue server, the rogue access point's actually collecting data as you're trying to connect to that system. And so we'll talk more about that on that week, but that's a man in the middle. That's a good one. Week 6, Air Crack Wep. This is a download. And then also I told you on this one to bring a laptop if you do have one. If you don't have one, don't go out and buy one for the lab. You just bring one if you got one. And we will see how quick it takes to crack a Wep password. And week 7, Steganography. That's the art of hidden writing. And it's basically in this week, go over how to hide data in pictures and how it can be done by employees to maybe hide data to for corporate espionage or to sell data or to do whatever with data. It could be done with child pornography, they found this at. It could be done with Al-Qaeda. They found this type of technology used on websites where they hid maps and pictures on websites. Look like a normal website, and folks downloaded the image, put it in a software like this, and extracted data. And the data you can extract is not only images, but it could be software, it could be executable software, it could be other documents, PDF files. And this technology we use actually as a bitmap file. We hide files in a bitmap file. And what's cool about the Steganography technology is if you have a file that's, say, 5 megs, you can pretty much hide a file in that, say the picture's 5 megs, and you can hide a file in there up to like 3.5, 4 megs. You can actually hide a file of 4 megs in a 5 meg file, and the 5 meg file will not change in size. And it not only won't change in size, but to the normal eye, you're not going to see really any degradation in the image as well. And in that week, we talk about this technology uses what's called LSB. It replaces the least significant bit of every byte in the image with the data. Week 8, PGP encryption, email encryption. You'll be downloading software for this one. Bring your USB drive this week if you don't bring it every week, a USB thumb drive, because you'll be installing software. We're using an open source software called Thunderbird, which has on it PGP, which is an encryption algorithm, to where basically you guys in this lab will set up a trust between each other to where you can send email back and forth with an encryption key, public and private key, and you'll learn how to do that. Week 9, risk identification. This week you'll actually be looking at a security or the lack of security here on campus, and you'll put together a risk analysis and a risk identification of how we stand as it is in security. And I'll give you a scenario that week, and you guys will basically ask students questions around campus and put together this risk analysis. This one basically is just a document you'll fill out, but it's really telling some of the stuff you'll find. And one of the examples I'll just give you is how many people on campus know how to reset a password, reset their student account password. That's one of the questions you'll ask students. And I'll probably give you a heads up a couple weeks before, that way you can start asking students questions like this. Like in your other classes, just say, hey, do you know how to change a account password for my, to get into Eagle or whatever? And just see how many know how, or maybe, did you know how to do it? And so just, we'll just kind of put a risk analysis together of how secure your password is. And we'll go from that to email. FERPA came here a few years back and told us we could not use social security numbers, which makes sense, right, for student ID. So you guys have your own S number, where you're really not supposed to publish that either, myself as a faculty or anyone. And a student revealed last semester to me in our email system, when you go to send somebody an email using RBC Eagle and you type their name, you see their S number immediately. Not only that, but if I receive an email from you and go in the header file of that email to look at, I see your name, John Smith, but if I look in the header file of that email, it says your S number, and that should not be. We should be, because you guys do have an alias, which is your first initial last name or something, I'm thinking for most of you. If you're a J. Smith, it might be J. Smith 1 or something. So instead of using the true alias for your email, a student revealed to me last semester and put a good report together on that, how it's really easy to find the S numbers. And then from that knowledge, you'd only have to find the password, and then figuring out what the default password is, you can know where that's going. And so we talk about that whole week, the security or the lack of security of that risk analysis. Because even in a place of business, you got to do that all the time as well. On password, people sharing passwords, proximity cards. Human nature is to help each other for the most part, all right? For the most part. And so there's exceptions, but most Americans want to help each other. See a guy broke down on the side of the road with the kids in the back and they got a flat tire, and we're going to pull over, see if we can help him, whatever he needs to get help. Same with network security, though. If somebody needs to get into a system and they're running late and they say, I'm going to get fired if I don't get into the system, a lot of people just let them in, and let them in the front door, let them in the back door. And so it's not just computer systems, it could be access to a door or whatever the case may be. Real prone for hackers to, on a rainy day or a real gloomy kind of stormy day where it's coming down, whether it be snow or whatever, to actually stand outside an employee entrance where people are going in around 9 o'clock or whatever, and most of them use proximity, and pick a company, use a proximity card or something to get into the door, and that's really the only security to get in. And they'll come behind people as they're kind of going in and say, oh, I forgot my card at the house. Can you let me in? And it's rain's coming down. They can't really see them. Just let them right in, or let her right in. And so that happens a lot. And then they get into the building, and then began doing whatever it is they need to do to collect whatever data it is they're wanting to collect. So we'll go over that week, because risk analysis is more than just computers. It's door access. It's what happens if your business was to burn down. Do you have a backup plan? What is that backup plan? Most businesses don't. They may have insurance for sure, but do you have a backup plan for the data that could be destroyed? Is it stored off-site? If it is, how quick can you get that data restored and in a temporary location? Like here on campus, we go to Colorado every year. Somebody specifically is their job, and they get paid with grant money to write a grant to get around a $1.5–2 million grant each year. That's what this person does, for us to go to Colorado to implement a disaster recovery plan here on campus. If God forbid the entire campus was wiped out with a tornado or fire or whatever, we have temporary locations and systems in place to where we can be up and going within 24 hours, and with phones and all your data and everything like that. And so in Colorado, what they do is they set up, it's an HP resort owned by HP, that basically we bring our backup tapes there to the resort, and set up phones here locally in Rockford and other locations, and then the folks over in the resort area restore the data, get it up on servers, get phone connectivity going, and they time to see how long it takes and if it works and everything works right. So like your student services stuff, all your data, your financial aid, all that stuff, which is, important data that we definitely need, and you guys definitely need. And so, but a lot of businesses don't go that far, but it's kind of cool that we're able to do that. You will learn that week, though, some ways businesses can do it fairly reasonable, and maybe can't afford $1 million plan every year to go do it. And businesses can also apply, like we do, for grants to do it as well. And they don't know that as well. A lot of businesses don't know that. And so we'll talk about that. Truecrypt week 10. This is a software, and it's a downloadable software where it allows you to hide partitions and encryption with those partitions. This is used a lot in security firms, and governmental facilities use this a lot for data that they do not want employees to see. So literally, without going into too much detail about it, when you load this software, you're allowed to point it to an existing partition on your network or your local drive. It creates a partition. Say it's a 20 gig partition. Then after you create it and mount it on this software, you can save data to it and retrieve data to it. And as you're saving data to this partition, it encrypts it on the fly as you do it. But then all you have to do is unmount the drive, and it saves it to one seed file on your network that has no extension, and you can name it something to be real, unclear to the user what it is. It could be called system file or something. And so without the software, though, it just looks like a big file, basically, on your network. But then once it's mounted, then you can be able to do whatever with it. And it's kind of a cool technology, been around for a while. And it's an open source technology. The software we'll be using, Truecrypt, is an open source technology. And you can even do a Truecrypt on your boot of your computer, meaning you entirely encrypt the entire hard drive and hide it until you put in the correct password. If you don't have the correct password, it won't let you go it won't even let you go into the boot of the Windows computer to get there. And so it's pretty cool software, and the guy that originally created it, they've updated the website in the last year, but before he updated it was kind of funny, the website, because he was kind of conspiracy theorist, this guy. So, government conspiracy a little bit probably, but he must have gotten in trouble or something about some of the words he had on the webpage, because I noticed they cleaned it up and it's kind of legalese and looks nice and nothing's offensive on it. It wasn't offensive before, but it was just like, if the government tries to come in and get your data from your company, they don't have the rights. And they go through like 2 paragraphs of amendment rights and how the man can't take your data. And so it was kind of funny, the wording of it, but None of that's on there anymore. It looks real. I wish I'd have saved and done screenshots of it back then. It was kind of cool, but I didn't. But that's a cool lab. And what's neat about it, we talked about that week, how can businesses use this type of technology for their good? And then also, how do hackers or even employees, can they use this basically untraceable if they know how to use it? And so it's kind of scary, but at the same time, it's out there. And most of you probably hadn't heard of it before this class, but it is fairly popular. And so we talk about ways you can, the ways that you can basically scan your network for anomalies in files. That would be a good red flag. Say you have a file that wasn't there yesterday, but it's there today, and that file size is, say, 5 gigs, has no file extension, and you're like, okay, because most networks, administrators can not only do a scan of the network, but they can also do a scan of your hard drive, and it's not real hard to put software on your network to scan for anomalies like that. And so we talk about ways that you can catch it. Now, granted, 99.9% of the time you would never find this on any network or any computer system, but if it was at 1% that it was someone taking, I don't know, corporate data and selling it, and that's how it's been used in the past, a person was caught using it, doing it that way, then it'd be worth at least looking into it. So, working on research paper on week 11, Thursday only that week. The entire class Thursday, you won't come to class. So that lab night, we normally have a lab night, you're going to devote to working on your research paper presentation, which I know up to that point you probably hadn't thought about it. But I'm going to give you an entire session to work on it. So if you want, I know some of you have family, kids at home, or other, responsibilities for sure. So you can literally just say, this is normal class time. Come on campus and work, or if you have a workplace and you can stay there and work and get some quiet time to get some research done, use that time to do it on that Thursday, okay? We will be coming to class that Tuesday and discussing some helps for you on research. That Tuesday, we'll be talking about, here's what I expect on your research paper, here's what I expect on your PowerPoint presentation. I'll give you some tips and tricks on creating a research paper. I'm not an English teacher, but I have learned some tricks over the years. I worked with an editor for a number of years, and I published a couple books before I graduated my master's, and I published a couple since. So I'm not, the only reason I'm any good at all with English now is because of the people that I've worked with that have helped me edit my stuff, basically. So I'll just share that with you, some things I've learned that hopefully will help you with your research paper in this class and then also with other classes. And one of the things I'll just kind of tell you without going further is outline, that everybody hates to hear the word outline. When the English teacher says, I want you to turn in your outline before next week that you're going to do an outline, a research paper for me. I want an outline next week. I mean, including myself, thought that was totally worthless up to about the third year of my bachelor's degree until I realized, no, not so much. It actually made a little sense. And so I'll share you some ways I made my outline that'll hopefully help you create your outline and kind of stay on target on your research. Because without an outline, you just kind of go everywhere. Just, I'm going to research for 5 weeks, and you end up having nothing. Like, what? 5 weeks of research with nothing. So the outline will help you kind of keep you on task. Week 12, Virtual PC. You might not have ever heard of that, but that's a Microsoft product that you guys can actually download tonight when you get home. It's a free download that you can download at no cost from Microsoft that allows you to install other virtual environments. And what that means is you can install other operating systems inside of your operating system that's virtually ready for you to play with. And so it's perfect. Like Microsoft, most students don't know this, have tons of downloadable virtual images. They end with a .vhd extension that you can test out. So if you wanted to test out the newest and greatest Windows Server, all right, you can do that for 60 days or 120 days and then load it in a virtual environment. And it's not going to hurt your system. It's in a virtual environment. And so virtual environments are great for testing and learning. And you'll hear a lot about virtual environments this semester. And we have it on all these machines here. And you guys can download it at home and install, you know, another version of Windows on it, or the version you have. And then maybe, well, the way I've used it in the past is, say I have some software at work I haven't tested yet, and I don't really want to implement it on any machine because I don't know what it's going to do. I'll install on the virtual client. And when you install on the virtual client, if it messes the virtual client, who cares? I have backups of the virtual client where I can just trash the one I just opened and use the backup, okay? And so virtual testing is great. And so I definitely recommend it. And you can just download it and maybe just, you know, go to Microsoft, just Google virtual PC. They have different versions and flavors of it. You'll probably want the latest flavor of it for your OS. So if you have a Windows XP all the way up to, you know, Windows 8, you can get a virtual PC for that system. The next is, oh, and on that week we'll be using virtual PC with a Linux distro called Kubuntu. And some of you might have heard of this Linux distribution. And basically what it is it's a full operating system, Kubuntu is. They also have a version called Ubuntu. And basically all it is both are different desktops. Ubuntu uses GNOME desktop, and Kubuntu uses KDE desktop, which is a Linux desktop environment. And students are kind of blown away this week that have never been exposed to Linux at all. And they're thinking Linux is like way geeky and it's not ready for Windows and people that are used to Windows, but that might have been that way 5 years ago. But when you install Kubuntu, it's literally like installing Windows 7. I mean, it's that slick as far as the desktop, the environment. And what's cooler about it is you can run these distros from a DVD. And a live distro, what that means is you just put it in your DVD-ROM at home, you start it up, and you have a full operating system running right there. And so what's great about it is you can find pre-packaged distributions that you like. So some distributions focus only on media. So if you're into media stuff, like movies and music, they have distributions in Linux that just focus on that. And you can carry it anywhere you want to, throw it in a computer, and you've got an entire operating system that automatically configures all the network settings to where you have internet access and all that good stuff, and you don't hurt the computer that you're on. And so as a network admin, I use Linux distros, the live CDs a lot, and Kubuntu's one. The other one that I'll mention, I'll actually hand out that night, we won't use it, is Knoppix is a popular one as well. It was actually developed by a network admin in Germany, and Knoppix is it's a Linux distro. It's a live one that has a lot of network security and network tools on it. And then the other Knoppix one we'll pass out is Knoppix STD, that basically has nothing but network security tools on that software. Literally 1,500 of them, if I'm not mistaken, on the distribution. And so you'll have those three that night given to you, along with the Kubuntu. Week 13, Forensic Drive Look. This app has been around a long time. In fact, I used to do this lab with floppy disk. How many has never used a floppy disk? Be honest. You've never used one in your entire life. I know there's some in here. Never ever. Okay. Well, if you haven't and you did want to raise your hand, I will have floppies here that night. We aren't going to use them in the lab because we don't have floppy drives in here. But I have old floppies around. I'm going to let you have one if you want one to take home as nostalgic purpose to say, oh yeah, I got me a floppy disk. It's like, what is that? All right. And so, but we used to do it with the floppy disk. And basically we use it now with, I have you create like a 5 meg partition, and we basically scan it. It's actually a virtual floppy disk. It's called VFD. It's a virtual floppy disk we actually load inside of virtual PC, and it shows up on your computer as a floppy disk, and you can write to it. What I have you guys do that week is you go to the internet, get a document. place it in this partition, delete it, and then also delete it from your recycle bin, and then rescan that partition with Forensic Drive Look, and it'll show you every word that you just deleted from that partition. And what that shows you is, even though people think they're deleting stuff, whether it be pictures, documents, or whatever, it's really always there, unless you do what's called a zero formatting, which we'll talk about that night. It's always there. And so it's not real hard for forensic folks to come in, pop in this type of software, which literally is under 2 megs in size, the software is, and scan your computer and get every single word ever written. And it doesn't find pictures, but it finds, if you've ever developed pictures or edited pictures with Photoshop or whatever, every time you open a picture in any editing software and save it, it always puts in the header file of that image the software that it was used to edit that. Also, a lot of times it'll put in there your name, the editor, kind of like Word does every time you open up a Word document that most people don't know about. It puts your name that you're logged into on that computer inside the header of that file as well. And so they can find things that way. And so that week we actually talk about Forensics Drive Look, and I'll also show you or give you some resources that week for those of you that want to look further into forensics as it deals with network security. And so network security and forensics is a pretty hot topic today in law enforcement. I mentioned a little bit on Tuesday. And so we'll give you some handout resources of colleges and universities around here that are specialized in forensics degrees. And then 14, network security distros. We'll focus that Thursday only on the distributions that are all out there. I'll give you another handout. We'll do a presentation on all the distributions that are out there, and you guys can download them, burn them to DVD, and then have them to use. And I kind of walk you through a whole bunch of different ones that are out there. Week 15 and 16 is your final presentations. And so you'll be doing your PowerPoint up here or video of your presentation. It could be a hands-on video of how to set up a Wi-Fi. And if you want to do that, I know everybody in here has a smartphone, and most of you have a digital video camera on that where you can video whatever. If you wanted to video a lab that you've done and put together for your presentation, you can definitely do that, and then just come up here, talk about what you did, why you did it, start the video. At the end of the video, is there any questions? And go sit down. Okay? If you want to do that, I offer that every single semester, and I've had a few students think about it, but nobody's actually done it the last couple semesters. So I know somebody in here is going to want to do that for sure. All right? Because you guys have a weekend where you can just have your friends over and, videotape a really cool demonstration of whatever it is you're doing your research on. That can be your presentation. Just has to be 10 minutes in length. Done. Easy, right? And so you can literally do that in place of a PowerPoint altogether. You just come up, say, here's what we did. This is why I chose it. Watch this video at the end of it. Any questions? Done. So if you want to do that, that's definitely an option for you to do, okay? Okay, well, let's get into the rest of the chapter 1 on information security. So hopefully by looking at these labs, you're kind of excited about maybe some of them. Some of them you're like, not really. But some of them may be kind of cool. They keep you coming and looking forward to it. You can put these in your 3-ring binder. I did not 3-hole punch these. I might bring my 3-hole punch in here for you guys later. If you want to punch those and put them in your binder, that's fine. I also have the document in our class in our computer, folder, computer document folder. So we ended on this slide here, in fact the slide before, on the different types of security and the information, I believe, in the middle. This goes into the different layers of security, because we ended on this slide, I believe, and I want to talk about people, procedures, and products. These last 3 we talked about. So products are the physical security around the data. It may be a door lock, maybe as complicated as an intrusion detection system and firewall. Like here in this room, we do have it's an alarm. If you look in the corner of the room, that little white box, it's a sensor. And so when I leave tonight, I'll set the alarm. And so if somebody was to break the window and get in, within about 5, and I think I get about, I don't remember, 15, 20 seconds or something. Anyway, it would set that off, and then it would alert the security folks within that time frame. And so some of your network servers might have these type of things to secure your product, to secure your data. People is those who implement and properly use security products to protect data. Okay, and that's pretty wide-ranging in scope. That could be everything from a network admin to a person that delivers the mail to the network IT office. Okay? All of those people are included in people. So that they don't technically have to be a technical person to have security privileges to go into that room. Okay? And so they could literally be dropping mail off in a room where all the HR data is stored on servers. Okay? So that's a pretty important position as far as if that person was to get a breached security or to get someone to social engineer them to get something from that room. Procedures, plans and policies established by the organization to ensure that people correctly use the products. All right? Plans are really meaningless if you don't have policies and procedures to follow them up. And follow through with those policies and procedures as well. So if somebody breaks a rule on, say, passing or sharing their network password, or letting somebody use their proximity card. Some of these items can be warnings. Some of these items can be immediate dismissal, depending on the severity of the offense. And so we've all worked in companies where we had tons of policies, right? But everybody broke them all the time, or certain people broke them all the time, and nothing ever happened. Okay? And so it really is, the scenario of the weakest link in the chain is a strength of your security, whatever the weakest link is. And so procedures are definitely important. So a more comprehensive definition is that network security is that which protects the data or the integrity, confidentiality, and availability of information on the devices that store, manipulate, transmit information through people or products, people, and procedures. So we get right now into the core of asset management or information security, the reason you're here. The first is when you're securing a network or when you're over a network, whether, again, you're an IT manager or you're just a procedures guy or a programmer. The first thing is the asset. This is basically something that has value, okay? Something that has value. An asset could be hardware, it could be software, but it could also be employees. It should be employees in that scenario. So hardware, software, employees, people, customers, database, are all asset type of stuff. An asset is something that if it has value of any type whatsoever, okay, numeric value, $ value, it's an asset, okay? It could be a cent or higher, it's an asset. A threat is an event or object that may defeat the security measures in place and result in a loss to that asset. For instance, the asset could be the numbers, Social Security numbers, and address information of all your employees. It gets stolen. That's definitely a threat. Okay, that happened, and somebody got the data. A threat agent is the person that got the data, the person that got the Social Security numbers and the address and information on all employees. It's a person or thing that has power to carry it out. It can be done through social engineering, I've already mentioned. It can be done through malware. It can be done through espionage, corporate espionage. It can be done through some of the softwares I mentioned here that we're going to be covering this semester in the labs. So a number of different ways it could be, the threat agent could be in different scenarios. Then vulnerability, the weakness that allows a threat agent to bypass security. Risk is the likelihood that a threat agent will exploit a vulnerability. Realistically, risk cannot ever be entirely eliminated. You're never 100% in anything but death and taxes. That's it. Okay? I heard today somebody say, the only thing you can 100% predict is yesterday. That's it. Nothing else is, you can 100% predict anything. Okay, is yesterday. I've never heard of that before. I thought that was pretty good. All right? But risk is something that every system will have, every asset's going to have. So if you ever say or hear somebody say, well, my network is impenetrable. No, that's like the Titanic that put across the paper, even God himself couldn't sink this ship. That was said about the Titanic before it launched off into the sea. And so definitely don't want to be too arrogant about your network security because nothing's 100%. So here's just a real simple diagram on network security and asset management. So you've got here a picture of a car, and it has a car stereo, which is the asset, and has a hole in the fence, which hopefully you've never seen a hole that perfectly cut in the fence, but it is. The person gets through the hole in the fence. That's the exploit. The threat agent's the person, and now Rick has now stolen the car stereo, Amanda's car stereo. So that's a very crude example, but that's it. I mean, there's definitely all the components here. You've got the vulnerability, which is the hole in the fence. The vulnerability in your business could be the back door of the business isn't secured, or people are letting other people in all throughout the day and all throughout the night. Coworkers are allowed to bring friends in for break time. You name it, there could be a whole bunch of different vulnerabilities that are already there. The threat agent could be everything from the family members coming in. The threat agent could also be the employees themselves. You could say could be a threat agent in some areas of business. If they have access to certain things, are going to need to be looked upon as they could be some type of threat. And then the assets, the car stereo, the asset in a business might be a database or might be a file of some type. So in this scenario here, the asset's definitely the car stereo. An example in IT would be employee database. The threat is stealing stereo from car. Threat in IT, stealing data. Threat agents, a thief. Example in IT is attackers, virus, or a flood. Vulnerability, hole in the fence. Vulnerability in IT, a software defect, or maybe you haven't done updates on software in a year and a half. The lack of updates. Exploit, climbing through the hole in the fence. IT, sending a virus through an unprotected email server. A risk, transfer to insurance company. On IT, educating users what to do next time so that doesn't happen or doesn't happen at all, ever. So preventing data theft. Security is often associated with threat prevention. The theft of data is one of the largest causes of financial loss due to an attack of any type on a business. And individuals are often data victims of theft. And so to thwart it, we've all heard of this term, identity theft. It's still the #1 theft in the world, from all over the world. It involves someone's personal information being stolen, whether it be bank information, credit card information. Cards are then left unpaid, leaving the victim with debts and ruining their credit. There is a way, I believe, and in fact I know there is, I know some people have done this, that you can get a new Social Security number. You can if it's so bad that somebody, but it literally takes years sometimes for this to happen. It's not like overnight. And so, the nightmare of someone that really has been raked over the coal with identity theft, it is a nightmare, and that's probably putting it nicely. trying to recoup their name and you know, their pride, embarrassment, and it takes time. And so, but it can be done. I know people have done it and came out on the other side, but identity theft is real, and we all, know that for sure. We hear it all the time. There are some legal consequences or avoiding legal consequences. I've mentioned one in here already, FERPA here on campus, but there's other ones. HIPAA for any of you in health. Anybody here work in hospitals or have spouses or boyfriend, girlfriends work in hospitals? So that's a big one. HIPAA definitely protects your data if you go into a hospital. The Sarbanes-Oxley Act of 2002, the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act, the USA Patriot Act, California Database Security Breach Act, and Children's Online Privacy Protection of 1988. So here is a really cool diagram I'm going to end with here on maintaining productivity and also the effect of attacks on a network or on a business. So cleaning up after an attack diverts resources such as time and money away from normal activity. So if you have 100 employees and say their average salary is $25 an hour, and the number of employees to combat an attack would only be 1, the hours to stop the attack and clean it up, 48, total loss in salary, $4,066, total hours of productivity loss, 81. Now let's jump to a larger company, 250, average salary again 25, it takes 3 employees though this time to combat the attack, 72 hours to clean it up, 17,000 in salary and 300 lost hours. 500 employees at $30 an hour, 5 employees, 80 hours to stop the attack and clean it up, 28,000 in salary and 483 hours, all the way to 1,000 employees, $30 an hour, 10 employees to take to combat it, hours required 96, 220,000, almost $250,000 in loss in salary, and over almost 1,300 hours in productivity. So the cost of losing data, the cost of losing that asset is a lot. So foiling cyber terrorism, we've all heard of terrorism, but there's also cyber terrorism. Every municipality has a anti-cyber terrorism task force. Even in Rockford, we have a division within our police force for computer forensics and also cyber attacks on the local municipality and even law enforcement. But basically on cyber terrorism, it's attack by a terrorism group using computer technology and the internet. And utility, telecommunication, finance service companies are considered prime attacks of this. And the attackers of all these we've talked about are wide-ranging. They are everything from hackers to script kiddies, which we'll learn about this semester, spies, employees, cyber criminals, and cyber terrorists. They could be your neighbor, they could be the kid down the street, it could be the guy you work next to at work, or the gal you work next to. And so they're everywhere. The types of attacker, the profile, law enforcement's into profiling. This is probably one area, I'm guessing, where it's very hard to profile attackers because they don't fit a unique description. We think of a profile of a hacker, again, of a person that's in a basement that can't, is homely looking and never leaves his house or her house, is antisocial, maybe just is against the man, and that definitely fits a profile. But that's not the case anymore. It used to be maybe, but not anymore. It's a wide-ranging spectrum now of all different walks of life, because there's actually, in the terrorist world, money to be made, and that's why they do it. There's actually a lot of money to be made in attacking via cyber, okay? Whether it be companies, bringing down companies a day before stock market is supposed to be released in that company, as an example. Having a company's credit cards data stolen the night before a big merge was supposed to happen. And so all these things happen all the time that we don't really hear about in the media because it's kept private, and it's not a national news story. It's a private news story. A company, maybe been around for 50 years, it happens to, but it happens. A person didn't get a promotion, and they're they might be a janitor or something. They were ready to be promoted to be the manager of all the janitors. They didn't get it, so they went in and proceeded to maybe dismantle some electronics or power grid during an important meeting that was going to make the company millions of dollars, and they lost a sale because of it. So, the list goes on and on. You could think of all the different types of attackers, okay? And they all, like I said, they don't all fit profile that normally other crimes might fit. And so we'll learn this semester some of the ways you can, even though you can't find a profile of a person, you can find anomalies within a network and also within a place of business to help thwart most of these things from happening, okay? I'm not going to say 100%, but most of these things from happening, all right? Because if somebody is dead set on doing something, regardless what it is, they're going to attempt to do it, and we hope that we can stop it from happening with all the systems we have in place and all the security we have in place. But more than likely, they, could get in and get whatever it is that they want to do. And then what are we going to do after that? Because we have to go to that level of thinking. Is not, oh yeah, we're just going to try to stop them. Well, what if we don't, and they come through and they get our data, what are we going to do? Because that's where most companies stop. They stop at, well, yeah, we're just going to beef up our security, whatever we have to do. We'll bring some people in. We'll figure out if we need to get, more proximity cards. We need to get more training, and all that stuff's great. But even all of that, if somebody was to come in and get your data, or your building was to burn down and all your data be gone, are you prepared for that? Do you have to prepare for that? And so if you don't prepare for it, it's like the saying goes, hope for the best but plan for the worst. You've got to do that. And all this planning that I'm talking about takes money, takes time, and resources, which in today's economy, with companies laying off and businesses not hiring, this is probably one of the last things on their list of things to do, I'm guessing. All right, are we secure enough? Okay, because they're worried about paying the light bill that month for the business or covering payroll. So they really can't afford to, they don't think they can afford anyway to talk about it and discuss it. So it's up to you as an IT person, as a manager, as a network admin, to bring these things up in cost-effective ways and scenarios to where financial folks can understand it, okay? And we'll hopefully help you with that this semester, because I've been around IT long enough to hopefully be able to give you some information that'll help you as when you leave here with your jobs that you have in the future, or even your present job you have now. And so with that, I'm done. We're done for the night. Next Tuesday, make sure and read chapter 2 of your text. And any questions? Yes?
I don't know if anybody bought your three-ring binder slightly. I just bought a pack from office.
Okay. You want to? To share some? Cool. Or I just told you you could give them away, didn't I? The pen you don't need for Thursday ever. I don't know if I mentioned that Tuesday, but I usually do. I try to. But yeah, never on Thursday do we use pen, but Tuesday we do, because on Thursday you guys generally turn something in. Tonight we're not, but let me go get the 3-hole puncher. That way, if you guys do want to punch your sheet here, I'll quickly run and get it while you're shutting down your computers and everything. Okay. All right, I got the 3-hole puncher. Anybody wants to punch their sheet?